I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want to answer the question everyone's asking. Should I wait or should I buy now? Let's start with what's actually happening right now. We all know the government wants to build more apartments, but let me put a number on it because the scale is the whole story. Across New South Wales, the government has committed to 377,000 new homes in 5 years by 2029 under the National Housing Accord. The great bulk of that is meant to land in Greater Sydney. Then it gets handed down to the councils. And here's where it hits home. Right here in the eastern suburbs, tiny Waverley, Bondi, Bronte, Tamarama has been told to deliver 2,400 new homes by 2029. Next door, Woollera, Double Bay, Bellevue Hill, Point Piper, some of the most expensive land in the country, has been handed a target of 1,900 homes, more than 3 times its previous target, in an area that's already almost entirely built out. Fair enough, the intention is good, but the cost to build has gone completely out of hand. And it's worth understanding why, when the government decided to accommodate all these apartments, they made a lot of zoning changes and streamlined the approvals. More height, more density, faster sign-off. That pushed a surge of new projects into the market all at once. And when everyone's building at the same time, all that money chasing the same trades and the same materials drives the cost of construction. Now, that cost splits into 2 parts. The first is materials, and the majority of what goes into a building comes from overseas. We're exposed to global prices, shipping, the exchange rate. The second is labor, and labor right now is extremely expensive. For a builder to secure a subcontractor today, they're competing against every other builder doing the same thing. There aren't enough trades to go around, so the subbies named their price, and the price keeps climbing. Let me give you the real numbers. A mate I know spent more than 20 years with one of the biggest developers in Sydney, building across the western suburbs. And he told me plainly, out there, you can only sell an apartment for about $15,000 a square meter. And that's internal space. So take an 80 square meter 2-bedroom unit at $15,000 a meter. The most you can sell it for is around $1.2 million. That's your ceiling. Now look at what it costs to build. About $9,000 a square meter. So 9,000 times 80 square meters, that's $720,000 just for the build. Do the subtraction. You can sell for $1.2 million. It costs $720,000 to build. That leaves about $480,000. And that $480,000, everything else. The land, the holding costs, the council contributions, the GST, the finance, the marketing, and the developer's profit. Once you add all that up, you simply can't acquire the land for what's left. The margin's too thin. That's why projects are stalling. Now here's the thing that matters for you, the buyer. How many Australians can actually borrow what these apartments have to sell for? Let's do the maths. To borrow $950,000, and that's a fairly typical price for a new 2-bedroom, you need a gross income of around $158,000 a year. That's roughly the top 8 to 10% of earners in the country. And let's even be generous and just look at the bare build cost. $720,000. To borrow that, you still need about $120,000 a year with a 20% deposit saved. That's the top 15% of earners. The median Australian earns about $56,000. So 85 to 90% of Australians literally cannot borrow what it costs just to build one of these units, let alone buy one. Now let's look at what's already out there. A 2-bedroom unit that's 30 years old in the same suburb with a better position and bigger rooms sells for $550,000 to $600,000 in the western suburbs. Same suburb, same size, almost half the price of the new one. So you've got a new apartment at $950,000 and an established one at $550,000. The gap is enormous. And that gap is telling you something. It's saying the new apartment is priced where it is not, because it's worth that to a buyer. But because the developer can't make the numbers work for any less, The buyer paying that price is betting the gap holds, betting that in 5 or 10 years the apartment is worth more than they paid. I don't believe that gap can stay that wide. It can't. The established apartment does the same job. It rents for the same money. It's in the same suburb. It's got better bonds. So why would prices stay doubled? Here's what I think happens. Either the new apartments come down or the established ones go up. One of them has to move. And given we're about to flood the market with new supply, I'm betting it's the new ones that move down. So if you're sitting on the fence about a new apartment at $950,000, ask yourself, am I comfortable paying nearly double what an equivalent established unit costs, betting the gap holds? Because if it closes even halfway, I'm underwater. And spare a thought for the developer sitting on 300 new apartments in a softening market. The stock cost $720,000 a unit to build. They need $950 to make their money back. But the buyer's looking down the road at half price and asking the obvious question. So the developer holds, the stock sits, the holding costs mount. And eventually the only way to move it is to drop the price, which is the exact moment everyone who bought early, betting on growth, finds out they paid the peak. That's the real risk in this market. Not the tax changes, it's the gap between what it costs to build and what people can actually afford to pay. Something has to give, and in my experience, it's always price.